Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. We're gonna go ahead and jump into our weekly Sunday Bitcoin stream. We're gonna zoom out to the longer term time frame, and then zoom into the shorter term time frames. Let's go ahead and just jump right into it. So, for the longer term time frame, there's basically only two counts that we're observing, and they're all derived from a time perspective and wave degree, which pretty much is the underlying theme of Elliott wave, but the overlining theme is structure, which most people are familiar with. But from a time perspective, there's really only two counts that we can observe on the higher time frame. A very bullish 1-2, 1-2, 1-2 scenario, meaning a triple 1-2, which has been completed. So 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. Now, after this triple 1-2 is completed, we should see a very large expansion upwards, which is somewhere where we're nearing it. We're nearing that very large expansion. And there's potential that we are in it now, which we'll discuss those variations on the shorter time frame once we zoom into it. But the general idea is a extremely large expansion. All these corrections were similar in time. So it either leads us to believe that they're an extension brewing, or since these corrections were similar in time, they're actually part of this same structure, meaning the other count, where this is just a regular impulse, whereas a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we have yet to have a B, C retraced, fully realized. As of right now, we're in that B wave. The only way is a flat pattern, which I'll discuss shortly in the stream as well. But from a time perspective, this does make sense as well. Because if we are in a cycle degree, we want this cycle degree to be greater in time than the primary degree corrections, which were pretty much at about 400 days. So we would expect at least double in time, which we have at least gotten right now. But we're going to expect more time to correct if this is a cycle 2 degree that's not completed. But it could be a triple 1-2 that has already completed, and these lows will remain intact. So those are really the only two things that we can see from the higher time frame perspective. Now, when it comes to the lower term time frame perspective, there are some counts that we have been observing. So really, there's only been two main higher time frame counts. The bullish counts do have some variations. I mean, at least one variation. But the bearish count, it's only one, and that's it. So once again, the underlying trends are finally coming into full realization, where the higher time frame trends are now forced to make a decision. So we're reaching a breaking point here, an inflection point where the higher time frame will have to finally make a decision, whether it's full on bullish or full on bearish. From a bullish perspective, nothing's changed here. We still have our cycle 2 bottom, which is right here. And that was completed with a triple zigzag. Now it's about viewing this structure that's unfolding right here. The main count is that we're seeing this as a wave 3. So here's our wave 1. There's our wave 2. And we are almost completed with this wave 3. Still think we have one more push up before we have another pullback. And that's the thing too. I know this pullback was fairly scary, considering how we just dropped probably a good 15-10% in a matter of days. But this was expected, and honestly, we do need pullbacks in order to go higher as well. And just taking into consideration, this was only a minor degree correction as well. We still have another intermediate degree correction and also another primary degree correction to come as well, potentially. Because this is just a large wave 1. Even though we have a wave 1 right here, this is still a large wave 1 itself. So we're going to get more correction here to unfold. Something like this. This is how we manage expectations based off of time and structure. We're going to expect another few months of correction to come here pretty shortly, after we get one more strong push-up. Once we get this correction right here, it'll be easier to gauge where we expect this wave 5 to end, or this wave 1. But we have to wait for the depth of wave 4 to be completed before we can gauge how much we want wave 5 to expand. But generally, we're going to look for about almost 100K. Pretty much right around there. Now, we could be in a very, very bullish scenario. So this is our moderate perspective. This is keeping things moderate. But from a extremely bullish perspective, we do have another count that we've been monitoring, another variation, which is that 1212. So nothing's changed here. We still have this as our wave 1, and we still have this as our wave 2. Instead of being in a companion wave 3, once again, this could be even more bullish than what we're expecting. This could be another 1, 2, and then another 1, 2, and then another 1, then another 2 to come. Then basically just blast off at that point. Now this idea was basically all being grounded by the correction that came before it. Since this correction right now that we're experiencing has gone greater in time than this prior correction, we can no longer look at this as a variation, which was basically a guideline, but we can still look at this one, which is something that we were expecting still. So if we did have our wave 1 termination right here, we had a lot more room as a basis for the next correction. So we were looking for that push up, which we got. Then we were looking for another push down, which we got. Now it's about managing expectations again. And how are we going to do that? The exact same way that we did with this one. So now let me clean this up here. We can get rid of this and let's just add it back on. So here's the ending of our prior wave 1. Here's the ending of our prior wave 2. There's the ending of our current wave 1, and we're looking for the end of our current wave 2. Now we want it to be less in time than the prior correction, just like how we were doing with the other variation. So this is a minute correction. We want it to be less in time than the minor correction. Then we get another push up, and the exact same thing. We're going to be in a minuet correction here. What do we want? We want this minuet correction to be less in time than the prior correction, which would be a minute. This is how we manage expectations with a a 1 2 1 2 1 2 extension, even just a regular 1 2 1 2, you want the next structure to be less in time than the prior correction. And then same thing. The next correction, we want to be less in time than a prior correction. Usually it's either a double 1 2, then blast off, or a triple 1 2, and then blast off. So we're reaching that point here. Once we complete this minuet correction, we're likely to just bounce straight up. And then on top of that, we're still going to use these corrections as well. Why? Because these are just 1 2s, 1 2s, 1 2s. They're going to need companion 3 4s, 3 4s, 3 4s. So we're going to use those prior corrections just like that. Just to make this a little more uniform, let's just go ahead and put the impulse on there. There we go. So we're going to use these still as a basis for the next corrections to occur, the wave 4 corrections. Ultimately, since this is a very bullish perspective, we are looking for a pretty much a fully realized extension. Usually the largest extensions go from 3.618 to 4, and really the maximum is at 4.618. Really don't see it very often, but it does happen. But typically, large extensions will end around this area. And once again, this is the very bullish perspective, that triple 1 2 scenario. Now, from a bullish or from a bearish perspective, once again, there's only one count left. It's pretty much reaching its tipping zone here. So it's a flat. That's really the only thing left we can expect. We have pretty much already hit minimum expectations right here for the expanded flats. But once again, I still see another push up here. These are very clear corrections. We've been following them as a wave 2 correction and a wave 4 correction, which also gives us wave degree confluence. Once again, the underlying trends are aligned on the bullish and bearish count. Once this is completed, there's that inflection point where it's gonna have to make a decision, whether it's full on bullish or full on bearish. So you really can't discount this yet. You really can't. But I do want to see it end somewhere in this zone right here. There is potential it could go to a typical 1 2 3 6 1 2 7 2. You can't discount that. But that's not something that I would want to expect here for a flat pattern, and if we're having a bearish perspective. We're really just going to look for typical wave 5 targets. It's hard to gauge it because once again we need this wave 4 to end. But for right now, we can do a generalized projection, which minimally we do want to see a 1 2 3 6. I feel like we'll get there. We could just push up to the 1618, which would be great confluence because it's stacked right on top of the 1.13 here, or a flat of the B wave. The tricky part is that will this low get taken after that? Flats are tricky, especially if it takes the prior high, because it could always end up being a running flat. So that's something that I'll be wary of, especially if we take these lows, but it's not very deep. Meaning, if we do want to see a expanded flat, we want to see a strong push down like this. But if it's something like kind of like that, and then we come back up high, it might just be a push down like that. A 5-way push down to running flat territory, and we'd have to move this C wave up here. So It's speculation as right now, because once again, we need a lot of more price action to be idealized before we can really kind of discuss this. But it's valid. It's extremely valid. And that's something that I always preach, is bring it back to validity, then base it off of probability. That's how you manage expectations. Let's go ahead and jump into the medium term time frame, which is where we've been spending a lot of our time here. Because once again, it's all about managing the underlying trends. They've been very correlated, but we're reaching that tipping point here. Let's see. 2 or 4. That's basically something that we've been basing this off of. Now we can actually get rid of this too, because once again, this correction here has been longer in time than the potential correction right there. So let's just get rid of this. And now, really, I do want to see one more low here. I really do. There's potential that we may not get it, which I'll discuss very shortly. But we have reached everything that we have wanted here for this correction. Number one, due to alternation, we really did not want to see this high get broken. Number two, we were looking for a 3-wave correction for about a month, maybe a little over a month, which is what we got. And then number 3, we were looking for these lows here. These were our main targets, this low and this low. So from a price perspective, we hit our objectives. From a time perspective, we hit our objectives. From a structure perspective, we have hit our objectives. Now, we're going to wait for a little more data and wait for confirmation. We need confirmation at this point. It's still not clear. There's even still potential we could make this as a pivot. There's still potential that this is not a pullback and it's a pivot down. It's very improbable, but once again, we have to be aware. We have to be aware. And then lastly, these are very important levels for the bullish macro counts. They truly are. We want these levels to hold if we are bullish on the macro perspective on Bitcoin. Now, at this time, the only thing left, once again, is confirmation. But this has been something that we have been expecting, and it's been something that we've been discussing from a time perspective, a price perspective, and a structure perspective. These moves down and the pushes up and the pushes down were all based off of Elliott wave and wave degree confluence. There were so many counts leading up, push down, push up, and then another push down. So it's all based off of Elliott wave theory, which, once again, this is why I love Elliott wave. It helps you give a narrative, then with that narrative, it gives you a bias, which helps you manage expectations. So this is still our roadmap for the medium term time frame. I haven't really had to change it much because once again it's been going along beautifully. But once again, we need confirmation. So in the lower term time frame, there is only a few other things that I can expect here. So let's take a look. As of right now, I'm looking at this more as a regular flat. Meaning a 3-wave move into a 3-wave move into a 5-wave move, where we still have one more low to come. We're monitoring this now as a minute C wave. So from a time perspective, We do want to see it end somewhere in this zone right here, which it will be ending in this zone. There's potential it could go beyond this, but typically we want to see it be at least a week, but on average about 2 weeks. Anywhere in this time frame would be beautiful. Otherwise, it's time to manage expectations again, where it may be something correcting further, which I'll discuss very shortly. But as of right now, the only thing I can really see, because of that extreme acceptance back up, because we were looking for a retest of this low, which we definitely got that retest. The only thing left I can see is just a triangle forming, where it's an A, and then a B, C, D, E. We could have even already completed that B, and this could already be the C. That was the D, and we already could have got the E, and we're pushing down now. The most important thing to understand is that isn't this isn't completed yet from an Elliott wave perspective. We still expect one more low to complete this overall 5-wave pattern. If it takes us high, I'd say this is invalidated. And the next thing that we have to look at, depending upon how we got up here, would be the structure being completed fully. And this was a WXY. This is more forced, honestly. This would be a forced WXY for me. Almost like a cop-out, you know? But we did have a extremely strong drop. We really did. And it doesn't look as clean, but it's still there. The C wave will be really extended in structure and price. Once again, I can get it. It's just forcing it, really. But if we take this high right here, these relative equal highs, it's something that I'm definitely going to be looking at. What I really want to see is our typical wave 2 zone holds. It's already reached equilibrium. It basically front rammed that golden fib. There's even potential it could have been this is a W and then an X and then a Y to come down one more time before we go up. But this is what I'd want to see. The last thing that I could really see is kind of almost, I don't know how to really put a label on this, to be honest. Let me just show it and we'll discuss it. So we have been following this triangle pattern. There are some charts where this low wasn't taken, and it was just nearly taking on this as well. I could get behind the idea of us still correcting internally and then correcting back before we move up. I really could. So I'm not going to put too much weight behind this. It's something I'm just really going to kind of just keep in the back of my mind. You know, just kind of throw it back there, let it marinate, and let's see how it plays out in a way, you know? We're not going to actively use it, but we're going to see how it plays out. Regardless, there's still a wave degree confluence in there, especially if this was a WXY. So either this is a wave 1 into wave 2, or it's a wave A into a B into a C. But realistically, I do expect a little more ranging and a little push down. Because also from a time perspective, you know, this does seem like it was pretty on point. But I do expect it to continue ranging. Just based off of the narrative of what's going on externally and geopolitically. The only market that was open was crypto on the weekend, so it was the only one that was truly affected. And I think the other markets may react to it, and it may bleed over into crypto itself, where we do get some internal ranging. But this could be completed. That's really everything I wanted to go over for Bitcoin. As always, I'll always update the Discord members on any new updates and what to expect. But what we'll do here is I'm going to go ahead and actually jump into the altcoins. Let's go ahead and take a look at the altcoins. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at all these ones in blue. So basically, we'll take a look at Ethereum, we'll take a look at ADA, we'll take a look at Solana, Link, XRP, Woo, Phantom, Matic, Rune, Dots, Avalanche, and we'll take a look at Sand. And if there are some requests, we can definitely look at some others too. But let's go ahead and jump into it.